Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, I wanted to talk about the fight this weekend. Artur Beterbiev is fighting Joe Smith in a unification fight, a 3-belt unification fight, which is highly anticipated, really. I think it's quite a big fight. It's quite a big fight. I'm looking forward to it. And when I say it's quite a big fight, it's probably a fight which I am looking forward to massively, by the way. I'm very excited and I want to see it. I think it could be a good fight. And I think the winner needs to fight Dmitry Bivol. My next video is actually about Dmitry Bivol. But I'll leave that for the next video. How do I see this fight? So look at Beterbiev. Beterbiev is a pressure fighter. He's a very high skilled pressure fighter. He almost reminds me a little bit like Golovkin. He probably doesn't have the chin of Golovkin. I don't think he's as durable as Golovkin is, but he is very durable still. I think he can take a punch. Most importantly, I just think he's just really good. He's technically very sound. He basically doesn't allow you to breathe. He's always on top of you. His jab is really good. His right hand is take your lights out kind of right hand. And he's got like concussive hammering type power where he just he's like beating the crap out of you basically. Most of the fights that I've seen, he's just beating the living crap. He reminds me, and he looks so much like Khabib. He reminds me so much of Khabib in the UFC. Like, you know how he's just draining you and beating the crap out of you and just basically beating you into submission. That's what Artur Beterbiev effectively does. He just beats you up. Like, he beats you up, slowly grinds you down, wears you down, and eventually takes you out. That's what Beterbiev does. Beterbiev is a monster. You know, when the word monster gets used a lot, he is a monster. And the way he grinds fighters down, the way he, like I said, beats you up, it's great to watch as well. He's actually very exciting to watch. You know, the way he dismantles guys, you know. There isn't anyone going to stop him. And look, Joe Smith, he's a guy, he's a little wild. He's a proper fighter, a very tough man, a warrior, a hard man. But I think the difference is, I think the amateur pedigree of Beterbiev, the skill set of Beterbiev is far higher than the skill set of Joe Smith. Joe Smith is a brawn fighter. He's there to fight. He's not somebody you want to mess around with, you know. But in terms of his skill set, I think they're levels apart in terms of how skilled Beterbiev is in comparison to Joe Smith. Joe Smith isn't the most orthodox guy, which can give orthodox guys trouble, but I think he's got power. I think that's another thing that I think will make him dangerous against Beterbiev. We have seen Beterbiev hit the canvas a couple of times. You know, Callum Johnson, who's a very big puncher, had him down, and I think Joe Smith is a similar type of puncher. Also, Joe Smith is going to like Beterbiev's style. Or no one's going to like Beterbiev's style, but, you know, he doesn't have to go looking for Beterbiev like he did for Bivol. So that's going to suit Joe Smith. It's just what's coming at him is going to be very difficult to deal with. Because, you know, Beterbiev is like a wrecking machine coming forward, a very skilled wrecking machine. You know, you think of some of the pressure fighters like a Marcus Maidana, for example. Marcus Maidana was somebody that was a little wild. He wasn't technically the most sound guy. I do think Robert Garcia improved Marcus Maidana, and Maidana became a better boxer under Garcia, and I think he definitely became a lot more calculated with what he was doing rather than early on in his career. Maidana was just a little wild. But towards the back end of his career, I do think Maidana there was more method behind the madness. I think with this guy, Beterbiev, he's just very skilled. And he's a monster. He's breaking you down. He's very skilled pressure fighter. They are very difficult to find. Generally, you get pressure fighters like your Maidanas, Porters that are a bit wild. You know, Maidana was a pressure fighter that was a little wild but had power. Porter, he was a pressure fighter, but I think he was a lot easier to deal with because Porter didn't have the power. And he was just all pressure. Intensity was at another level. But Beterbiev is that. He's basically Maidana's punching power, Sean Porter's relentlessness, and great boxing skills as well. Great jab. He's got the whole. This is what I mean. It's very rare to find pressure fighters like that, of that level, and that's why he's got 17 fights, 17 knockouts, because he's just so skilled and so good. I think he's one of the best pressure fighters I've seen since I've been watching boxing for the last 12 years. He's so skilled. I think he's up there with Golovkin. Golovkin was another one. Like I said, he was a very skilled pressure fighter. You know, his footwork, and Beterbiev is the same. His footwork is immense, incredible. And that's what makes them so good, because they cut off the ring so well. And when they get close to you, there's not many exits. There's not many doors where you can get out of. Like, they're right on top of you. And they're just suffocating you, and they're beating you up, and eventually they drown you. They take you into deep waters and eventually drown you. You know, they dismantle you slowly. You know, you think of it like a Komodo dragon biting you and then slowly, letting you slow down and eventually, eating you. That's what these guys do. They just chip away, and eventually wipe you out. Beterbiev is a very, very, very good fighter. And I think he's going to take some beating. I do think Beterbiev is the best lightweight in the division. Light heavyweight in the division. I think he's going to be very difficult to beat. A lot of people think Bivol will beat Beterbiev. I don't think so. I just don't think. Canelo Alvarez, don't get me wrong, was strong, and he put Bivol under pressure, but Canelo doesn't have the strength, the size, the power of Beterbiev. Beterbiev is massive. He's 6 foot tall. He's physically very strong. If you look at his body, he's very muscular, very big, very physically very strong. He can push you off. He hits very, very hard. Hits a lot harder than Canelo. So that's going to be a completely different fighter to deal with altogether. Canelo isn't Beterbiev. Canelo doesn't have the physicality or the physical strength of Beterbiev. So you can't compare what Bivol did to Canelo to Beterbiev, because Beterbiev brings things to the ring which is completely different to Canelo. He's naturally a much bigger man. He punches much harder. He's a much physically stronger man than Canelo. So, we don't know how someone like Bivol will get on with Beterbiev. I do think it's a good fight. I do think Bivol is capable of beating Beterbiev, but I don't think we can take much from the Canelo fight, because Canelo brings different physicalities to the table than what Beterbiev brings. Beterbiev's a wholly, completely different kettle of fish. Also, Canelo isn't as good a pressure fighter as Beterbiev, because Canelo's never been, like, that's not been his trait. He can become a pressure fighter, but that's not what he does normally. Canelo's quite versatile. He can do it all. He can box from the center of the ring. He can become a pressure fighter. He has been doing that recently with the fighters that he's been fighting. But I don't think he's as good a pressure fighter as a Beterbiev or a Golovkin. Canelo can also fight very well off the back foot as well. Again, we don't know how Beterbiev fights off the back foot, because he's not really been pushed back, really. He's not really been pushed back. If you look at his whole career, he's been pushing the other guys back, and they've been fighting on the back foot. It's going to be interesting if someone like Bivol can push Beterbiev back, and see what happens if Bivol is able to push Beterbiev back and bully Beterbiev. That'll be very interesting to see. I think, for me, I think Beterbiev is going to be very difficult to beat. Very difficult to beat. I think he's an incredible fighter. Incredible power, incredible skills. The footwork is great. And like I said, pressure fighters, for me, it's their footwork that makes them special. And this guy has really good footwork. He cuts off the ring. He might not look the fastest, or he might not look the slickest in terms of his footwork, but I'm telling you, man, the guy is very, very difficult to beat. Very, very difficult in this light heavyweight division to beat. And I think Bivol's going to have his work cut out. And I think Joe Smith, unfortunately, is going to succumb. I think Joe Smith might have some moments in the fight, But I think Bivol will grind him down. Beterbiev will grind him down. And I think Beterbiev will stop him. I do. I think Beterbiev will beat. I think he'll crush him in the end. I think it'll be like it was with Marcus Brown. Beterbiev might have to be a bit more careful because, Smith does have power. But I think he's going to grind him down. I think Smith will be dangerous early. Potentially, if he lands something, he might be able to catch Beterbiev. I think as the rounds go on, I think Beterbiev is going to sap his energy. I think about round 6, round 7, round 8, I think Joe Smith will have nothing left. I think Beterbiev would have basically beaten him into submission. So I think Beterbiev will knock Joe Smith out, if I'm honest with you, because I think Joe Smith has power, but I don't think he's the greatest boxer in the world. I think he's a big puncher. If he can land something, maybe. But I just think Beterbiev overall is just a much more skilled and much better fighter. And I think he will wear Joe Smith down and beat him into submission. I do. And that's no disrespect to Joe Smith. He's a good fighter, but he was beaten soundly by Bivol. Bivol has a different style to Beterbiev. See, Beterbiev will just beat you up. Beterbiev isn't Bivol. Bivol will outbox you, outclass you. Beterbiev will just beat you up. He'll beat the crap out of you. And like I said, beat you into submission. He's a brute. He's a brute. And like I said, he's like Golovkin, really, for me. I know some people say he's nothing like Golovkin. No, he is. He is like Golovkin. He might even be better than Golovkin. Because Golovkin, after 17 fights, didn't have a name like Govzik on his record. He didn't. Golovkin had plenty of fights. And if we remember, Golovkin, a lot of his career was lower level competition, really, for majority of his career. This guy has already fought someone like Govzik, who was a very good fighter, by the way. Govzik was a really good fighter, and he just beat the crap out of him. He just beat the crap out of Govzik. He just beat him up. And that was supposed to be a tough fight. Marcus Brown, a lot of people thought Marcus Brown's boxing ability would give Beterbiev some trouble, but it didn't. He just battered him. Beat him into submission. Marcus Brown, in the end, just had nothing to give. He had nothing left. He was just beaten up. You could see on his face, what is this guy that keeps coming at me? And this is what I'm trying to say to you guys, that Beterbiev there's something monstrous about this guy. This guy is so strong physically. He punches so hard, so relentless. I can't see anyone beating him, because we can't judge the Canelo fight against Bivol and say, well, look at what Bivol did to Canelo. It's a completely different ball game. Beterbiev, as I mentioned, has a different type of physicality to him. And I know a lot of you keep using that fight that he did with Canelo. Canelo's not Beterbiev. He's a good fighter, Canelo, but Canelo's 5'8". Beterbiev 6'4". He's much bigger than Canelo, physically much bigger. How do we know how Beterbiev is how Bivol is gonna deal with a 6 foot, a very highly skilled pressure fighter, big guy? How is he gonna deal with someone like that? It's not that easy. It's not that easy. And Beterbiev has much more power than Canelo. So if Beterbiev hits Bivol, how's Bivol gonna react? All of these things have to be, looked into, because like I said, we just don't know how Bivol will react to someone like Beterbiev, because he hasn't faced anyone like Beterbiev. Canelo is a great fighter, but Canelo is a smaller great fighter. Bivol was able to absorb Canelo's shots. He might not be able to absorb Beterbiev's shots, because Canelo doesn't punch as hard as Beterbiev, isn't as physically strong as Beterbiev. If Canelo fought Beterbiev would be the one on the top of Canelo. Canelo would be on the back foot. Canelo would be on the back foot whole fight. If Golovkin was able to push Canelo back, then imagine what Beterbiev would do. This is what I'm trying to say. Beterbiev's a whole different monster to what people give. People don't give Beterbiev that much credit. He's a guy that's kind of gone under the radar a little. But I'm telling you, this guy is the best light heavyweight in the world. And until proven otherwise, Bivol's got the best win now because he beat Canelo. But until proven otherwise, for me, he's the best light heavyweight in the world. And I think Bivol needs to beat that guy to prove he's the best light heavyweight, in my opinion. And I do hope, if Beterbiev does win, which I expect him to, or the winner of this fight, that they make the Bivol fight, because that is the fight we need. We need Beterbiev and Bivol. That is a super fight in the light heavyweight division. Forget of the fact that the fight don't sell or it's a boring fight. You know what Bob Arum was saying? Nonsense. The fans want to see that fight. It's a big fight. It's the fight we want to see. It's actually been built up now. After Bivol beat Canelo, it's gone even bigger. So, yeah, hopefully they can make that fight. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next video.